It's exciting to be part of a community in Ballarat. And it's really exciting for the three of us to put all of our skills into place and for us to build a business that's going to take its place as part of Ballarat's culinary tapestry. But it's also nice to be part of a regional community again.
Today on Dirty Linen, we are heading to Ballarat, to Hotel Canberra. Our guest today is someone that I've encountered many times over the decades I've been writing about food, but I've never encountered him as a restaurateur, a hotelier, a publican. Pete Dillon, welcome to Dirty Linen.
Dani Valent, thank you. And it is very nice to be encountered again after so many encounters. It's great to join you.
Yeah, it's so good to chat to you. I think actually maybe the last time I spoke to you, you were hosting your radio show and we were talking about some foodie related thing that I was up to. So how the tables turn, please put yourself in context. Tell us what you're up to.
Well, my brother, Paul, and my partner, Jigs, and I have taken over Hotel Canberra in Ballarat. This is a 95-year-old building. It's had various incarnations in its life. A lot of people kind of talk about, my grandparents used to drink there, or one of my friends actually said, my grandparents met there and fell in love. So it has a connection to a lot of people. It's kind of right in the heart of Ballarat, so away from the main street, across the road from the cemetery, a short walk to the lake and a short walk to what we would call central or downtown Ballarat. So it's in a perfect spot. It's a beautiful old building. Went through a very big renovation back in 2017. So from a renovation point, we haven't had to do a lot to it. We've just kind of pared it back and given it a new lease of life.
And I mean, so I know you mostly as a publicist, public relations expert, maestro, someone whose press releases have dropped into my inbox and have always been worth reading. I was so surprised. I felt like I'd misread it when I was like, is this my Pete, who's suddenly a hotelier? Can you just explain, just give us your story, like what has brought you to this point?
Well, this is kind of for me, and it's a collective, so I don't want to kind of just make this about me, but for me, it's a culmination of all of the years of work that I've done. So I started my career as a chef, and from chefing, I moved into front of house and worked in restaurants, and then moved into hotels. So I was with the Sheraton Mirage in its kind of heyday back in the early 90s. So I was up there for a couple of years. So hotels are in my kind of featured in my CV for a long time before I came back to firstly in Sydney and then in Melbourne, and kind of did a marketing qualification, then in a comms qualification, became a journalist and spent half a dozen years at the ABC, and then went out on my own in around 2010. So I spent the last 12 years as, in publicity and marketing, in brand, in comms. So this now is a culmination of all of those things. So taking those years of working in hotels, taking those years of running restaurants, putting my food knowledge on the table, my love of and passion for wine and alternative varieties and that kind of thing. So for me, it's a combination of skills. For my brother, it's very much a passion of his he wanted to be a chef when he first left school. He became a printer. He's always been a part of the industry. He worked at the Loaded Dog when it was a big thing. He's worked at the LB and Charles. He's been involved in bowls and football clubs and has been looking after his bowls club in Strathmore for the past half dozen years, and taking care of the bar and what have you. And then my partner Jigs was at Rockpool before we came here in Melbourne, and prior to that had spent some time at Iphodo in Melbourne, because he chose Melbourne as his home after 8 or 9 years working on private ships, private yachts around the world. So combined, we have a reasonably formidable team of skills and knowledge that allow us now to look at the hotel and operate it in a way that we have Bobby's, which is our bar. We have Vesta by Jigs, which we're opening at the end of November, which is our restaurant, and we have the Stables Cafe and Bar, which we're opening this weekend, 7 days, kind of cafe bar that you would find something like this in Melbourne, but we're very lucky to have a nice big space to be able to play in as well.
That's amazing, Pete. What a journey. And, we love on this podcast talking about pathways in hospitality. And, you really demonstrate the fact that not only are there so many ways to go within hospitality, but that you can step off to the side for a while and then find your way back in. Would you say, everything that we've all been through over the past couple of years has been a catalyst for you wanting to get onto this new stage of your working life?
Yes and no. I think when I came back to Melbourne in the middle of the first lockdown, I'd always had in my mind, because we were my previous, I don't want to go delving into what happened previously, but it's something that has been in my mind and in my kind of lane for the last 3 years. And I looked at I think about 8 different properties, but settled on the Canberra. We walked in and we all kind of went, oh my God, her bones are beautiful. These original ceiling roses are stunning. We just kind of looked around and went, this has everything that was on the plan, plus a little bit more. So the plan had always been to have a bit of a destination within 2 hours of Melbourne where we could do a restaurant, we could do a lovely wine bar and some accommodation. So we could combine all of those to provide a really nice offer. The cafe, I guess, was the bonus, and the cafe is kind of happening in 2 stages. We'll open the front part, which is formerly a tea room. We've done a renovation in there. We've got an open kitchen in there. So we'll do that as part 1, and then part 2 is where we connect that building to some 100-year-old heritage-listed stables at the back, providing us a kind of almost 4 spaces in the cafe. There's the street side, there's the tea rooms building, there'll be an indoor-outdoor kind of area, if for want of another term, a patio or a pagoda that connects the 2 buildings, and then those 100-year-old stables. The horses used to pull trams in Ballarat, and we've got some beautiful photos from around 1927-28 where there is a tram at the front, horse-drawn, out the front of this hotel, and the horses used to be switched over, and that's the reason we have stables. So being able to kind of chart that story and tell that as part of our narrative at the hotel is a lovely way of demonstrating its kind of presence in Ballarat. And anyone you talk to and say, oh, we're at the Canberra, they all know exactly who we are and where it is, because it has stood here and kind of imposing on this corner for quite some time, almost 100 years. So the narrative is really lovely, and it's beautiful as a storyteller, as a journalist, as a food person, to be able to tell the stories of the many kind of journeys that this property has been on, and how we're able to bring it to where it is, but incorporating all those things, some of which are 100 years old.
And why is it called Canberra?
Interesting story. In 1927, our national capital opened, Canberra, and the hotel had gone through another kind of small disaster. It had 3 major fires. The first 2 wooden buildings burned down, so this building is now is made of brick, obviously. So in 1927, they opened the hotel, and I think wanted to change from the Vine, which was its former name. So they called it the Canberra because the National Parliament was opening at the same time.
That's kind of cute. It's like we were all just so excited about Canberra. That's really nice.
It is cute, and like there's a very cute touches, like in the bathrooms or the toilets in the bar. The toilet roll holders are made of little coats of the Australian coat of arms. So there's all of these little touches that kind of point to that time as well.
Wow, I love that, Pete. It's really, so nice. So let's talk about regional dining. And, you mentioned that you wanted a destination. Ballarat's one of those, there aren't that many Victorian towns that can really, I suppose, sustain and be their own sort of market completely. Ballarat is one of those, but of course it loves visitors as well. Where do you think regional dining, destination dining is at in Australia at the moment?
Look, I think COVID took across the industry one great big swipe at at operators. And I think there are many who have kind of thought about how they would then not reinvent but reconfigure what they were doing. I'd probably use Michael Ryan at Provenance as a fine example of that. Michael now has a bitters company. He has an alcohol brand that sits beside his building, beside his restaurant. And I think those that we know, if we look at the Lake House, which Ella has sustained for decades now, what Dan Hunter's doing at Bray, they're still going and they're still going strong. I think regional dining is probably about to experience another burst, and I don't want to try and predict that it will have that burst of visitation, but there has been a great kind of, I don't know, a lot of people who were very interested in making sure the industry survived. And what was done by people like Shane Lear at Providore, for example, to be able to bring that dining experience into our home has made people a bit more aware of the quality of the produce we have available to us in Victoria. We're very proud to boast that our bar and our restaurant are 100% Victorian, so all the wines, beers, spirits we serve in the bar are all Victorian. The mixers come from just up the road. So that whole focus on being able to offer something that is a very Victorian experience has been a great driver for us. Likewise, the restaurant will be 100% Victorian produce. There's nothing that's going to come from outside the state. That was a very deliberate decision we made early on. The cafe will probably sit at around 80% Victorian. There are obviously things that we can't buy rice from Victoria, we can't buy vanilla from Victoria, but there is a real focus for us to do as much as we can that's local, and I think that's appreciated. And one of the great things that we've discovered as a business is the willingness and the real drive from other businesses in the town to lift us up. And there was a lovely quote that one of our customers made the other day, that when the tide rises, everything rises with it. So we've made a bit of an effort to meet some of those other operators in the town to go and be seen in their business and support their business. And we're discovering that there is a real drive in Ballarat for Ballarat region to become known as a dining destination. Melbourne Food and Wine are doing a whole series of events out here. We were going to be part of that. Sadly, we've had to withdraw because we've got priorities that have shifted for us, and that's getting parts of our business open. But seeing that there is a drive from Melbourne Food and Wine to feature Ballarat as a regional destination is fantastic, because there is all kinds of things happening here. There are beautiful micro producers that we're drawing on, and it's just really kind of at that point, Dani, that it's about to explode, and I'm really excited by that. We're really excited by that as a business, but also those people that are in and around our region are incredibly excited that there is that drive, that push for Ballarat to be recognised as a real foodie destination.
And what about staffing? I mean, that's certainly an issue everywhere, but in the regions it's perhaps even more acute. How are you going with that?
It's a challenge. It's a huge challenge. And so we have to think outside of the square, I guess, where we're very keen to meet people who may have worked in the industry that have gone on to do other things that may want to dabble back or come back and check it out. I think it comes down to what we can offer people, and certainly the region itself is beautiful. It's a lovely place to live. For us, I think it's knowing that we can teach skills. We can't teach passion. We can't teach people to have a personality. So as I have done over many years in management in the industry, we will find people who have customer service skills or who have personalities that are willing or keen to learn. Because, as I say, we can teach skills, and it may be people's first time in the industry when they're in their 50s or older, who really just want to have that experience. We've got a young apprentice who grew up in the region. He is super keen to learn. He has an incredible passion for what he does. So the skills can be taught. So I think that's been our focus in our recruitment. Thankfully, as a small team, we haven't needed to to go too hard on building a whole team. We have a chef, we have a manager. We're just putting a barista and another chef into place. And whilst that's been a challenge, it's we're fingers crossed that we're able to find the people that we can actually elevate into that space.
I think it's it's great really to hear you talking about, older people or people without experience coming into the workforce. I mean, there's so many positives in needing to look further afield or, to look in other areas for people who can, work in your business with you.
And people who may, and I don't want this to sound awful, but people who may be overlooked because they don't kind of fit a mould, and I'm not saying that this happens, but people who may have some interesting histories or indeed have struggled because they may have some mental health challenges, sit on the spectrum, they may be culturally diverse. All of those things kind of have to go out the window because it's not about being fussy, but we really have to focus on making sure that we've got a team of people that we can rely on that become part of our family. We're a family business, and I say that without anything tongue-in-cheek. It's my brother, my partner, myself. So we are a family business, so anyone that comes into the business becomes very much a part of our family.
Something else I think that I've really noticed over the past couple of years, Pete, is the rise of Filipino cuisine in Australia. Certainly something that I learnt a lot about through lockdown and all the various side hustles going on. So your partner and chef Jigs Loanag has a Filipino background. Will that come into the restaurant much at all?
Very much so. We're very lucky that Jigs does have a Filipino heritage. So he's born in the Philippines, grew up kind of at his grandmother's and mother's side, watching them cook, watching what they did, and kind of all of those very traditional Filipino dishes are part of his identity, I guess. He then went and worked around the world, has seen a lot. So I guess we're looking to bring his heritage into our cuisine, certainly in the restaurant, but at the same time, it's the restaurant is really about produce. It's what's available to us and where that produce is and where it comes from, and it's local and all of that. So there'll be a couple of dishes in the cafe that are Filipino. So one is called sisig. It's a dish that's made of pork belly. It's served on a sizzling platter. It is absolutely delicious. We'll certainly, I don't want to say be part of a trend because that seems to be silly in this industry, but Filipino food, Filipino cuisine is finally finding its space in amongst many other cuisines that we probably are more familiar with, Vietnamese, Thai, Indonesian, all of those. So it's nice to see it, and I think what's happening with Sarai and Ross Magnane's in Melbourne is probably driving a little bit of the interest in the cuisine as well. So we'll certainly be making some nods to his heritage.
Yeah, really exciting. And I mean, is that going to be through the restaurant as well? And with that all-Victorian focus, do you anticipate any challenges in, I suppose, rendering Filipino dishes or concepts but using all-Victorian ingredients?
Yes and yes. Definitely yes, as in we will have those influences. But you're absolutely correct. The challenges of finding what we need. So what we can't find, we're contemplating how we grow it. So calamansi, for example, a beautiful little Filipino citrus. We know that we can get some trees. They'll be ready in a couple of weeks. So we will plant those in the garden here. We've got a garden space. So anything else we can't find, we will pop into the garden and grow ourselves. So it will be hyper local then. We've got a lovely garden space here at the hotel. We've got another garden space at home. So our plan is to kind of be able to grow anything that we can't source, and think that might be some fresh ginger, all sorts of things. I mean, obviously some of these things are available in Victoria, and if we have to adapt a recipe just to make it work, it's certainly doable as well.
That's so exciting. It's such the Australian story, isn't it? That migrant communities over the centuries have come in, and if they couldn't find the ingredients, they'd bring in the seeds and grow it. So, it's amazing to be part of that story, especially in a community like Ballarat, which, has such important migrant stories threaded through its history.
It does, and there is actually a really vibrant Filipino community here. So we popped into an Asian grocer the other day, and it was interesting listening to Jigs speak in Tagalog to the woman behind the counter, and it was kind of lovely. We're talking about this particular ketchup that he loves to eat, that is spicy, that is made from bananas, and they were both very disappointed that when the order had come into the Asian grocer that the banana ketchup wasn't there. So there was a lovely little conversation about that banana ketchup, which I've become really fond of as well. It's got a lovely little spice to it. So there is quite a strong Filipino community in the region, and I think that's going to be probably a community that will support us as much as anything else.
So Pete, stepping back a bit from all the particulars, how are you feeling about this big project?
It's exciting. It's exciting to be part of a community in Ballarat, and it's really exciting for the three of us to put all of our skills into place, and for us to build a business that's going to take its place as part of Ballarat's culinary tapestry. But it's also nice to be part of a regional community again. We all grew up in regional Victoria. Paul grew up just up the road in Meredith. A number of my siblings were born here at St John of God Hospital in Ballarat, which is, less than a kilometre up the road. One of my sisters has passed away as an infant. She's buried up in the new cemetery nearby. So we have a lovely connection to Ballarat, and it's really exciting to be kind of back here. I came here just out of my apprenticeship and worked in a couple of hotels as my first foray into leadership roles in kitchens. So it's really lovely to be back in this community and very much feel a part of it. And I think we're all excited about what this hotel can offer. Obviously, we're all exhausted because we've been, popping in some really long hours to get it all ready and do the things we need to do. But at the same time, there's incredible, this really palpable excitement. We're all jumping around that we're opening our cafe on the weekend because it's been a bit of a labour of love. So yeah, we're just incredibly excited as a team of people to see it all alive. We've got accommodation that's running upstairs, so that's some renovations coming next year to make those individual hotel rooms rather than the apartments we have, which is kind of our next major project once we get the other outlets all operating.
Love it. And I mean, as a gay man returning to Ballarat with your partner, do you feel like regional Australia has shifted in terms of, being safe spaces for people of all orientations?
Significantly, very much so. Here, back in the end of the 80s, it was a very interesting place to be. I wasn't out at the time, but it's a very welcoming, it's a very accepting community. Our mayor, the mayor of Ballarat, is gay. He's just proposed to his partner on the weekend, I think, at Werribee Mansion. So yeah, look, it's a very welcoming space. Regional Victoria has changed incredibly, certainly with regard to the LGBTIQ community. I think a lot of that came from the marriage equality vote, but I think also it's come from just a shifting global acceptance of diversity, and that kind of goes from a cultural point of view as much as it does gender and sexuality. So I think we're very lucky. It's a major regional city. There is a very welcoming community. We've got our own piano bar in the main drag that has there's some drag shows in there in the week and all sorts of things. So yeah, it's very much a place that is very different now for people of diverse sexuality and gender, and we see it every day. We see it in our customer base. We see it in what we see in the community. So it's very welcoming.
So much to be happy and excited about, Pete. I'm really thrilled to catch you for a chat at this, poised on the threshold of all these new things. Wish you all the best with Hotel Canberra and all its many iterations, and I cannot wait to get up there and check it all out.
We can't wait for you to get here and come and have a look. We'll roll out the red carpet for you.
Maybe could you draw me along in a tram with a horse at the front?
I don't know. I was looking at some photos the other day, or some vision of the trams when they were operating as actual trams that weren't horse-drawn. I think they're electric trams. It would be great to see trams back in Ballarat. I think there is one that goes along Lake Wendouree. That's probably about the best we could do.
Okay, I'll look into it. Great to chat. Thanks so much, Pete.
Thanks, Dani. My pleasure. Thanks so much for having us.
This is Dirty Linen, and I'm Dani Valent. We air the issues that the hospitality industry finds hard to talk about, hearing from different people with unique perspectives. We want to hear from you as well. If you have something that needs to be said about a topic, get in touch so we can include your perspective. Contact us at dirtylinen@deepintheweeds.com.au or hit us up on Insta at Dirty Linen Podcast. We can't wait to hear from you.